In the news tonight, the Prime Minister inaugurates key projects to improve water supply and create jobs in the northern region. A US spokesman says the United States will soon start arming Kurdish fighters in Syria after the capture of the town of Tabqa from Daesh. And South Korea's new president starts efforts to defuse tension over North Korea's weapons development. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Prime Minister Hani Molki launched a number of developmental and productivity that will improve water supply in northern governorates and create more than 1,000 jobs. Among these is a project to convey water from Wadi Al Arab to northern governorates, as well as a pipeline to carry water from the Hofa reservoir to Beit Ras in Irbid at a combined cost of about $133 million. Minister of Water and Irrigation Hazem Al Nasser said the vital Wadi Al Arab water project will secure water needs at a capacity of 30 million cubic meters and also involves building a water treatment plant and 4 pumping stations. During a tour in the northern region, Molki also laid the foundation stone of 2 productivity projects in the Northern Valley and Northern Mazar districts, as well as opening the Northern Valley Construction Corporation building. He said the projects carried out by local and foreign investors are in the line with the government's employment policy. The Prime Minister said he was happy to see these projects come to light despite the economic hardship. He also noted that the Cabinet had endorsed the urban public transport project in Irbid that will be followed by similar projects in Zarqa, Madaba, Amman and southern cities. Senate President Faisal Faiz said on-campus violence has become a serious matter that haunts Jordanian society. He spoke at a ceremony to launch the National Forum on University Campus Security, organized by the Friends of the National Security Organization in cooperation with the University of Jordan. He said that despite the security and stability Jordan society enjoys, it has unfortunately witnessed some phenomena and practices that are alien to our values and traditions, namely campus violence. He told the ceremony attended by the Minister of Higher Education and top academics that violence at campuses had adversely affected society and undermined trust in national education institutions. The Senate head stressed the role of civil society institutions, media, religious leaders and mosque preachers in fighting campus violence. The spokesman for the US-led anti-Daesh international coalition said Washington will start arming Kurdish fighters in northern Syria. Colonel John Dorian said part of the weapons is already on the location and could be distributed swiftly. The White House has authorized the Defense Department to supply the Kurdish protection units to accelerate the defeat of Daesh. Meantime, Kurdish fighters captured the key town of Tabqa from the Daesh terror group. Here's more.
The northern Syrian town of Tabqa is in the hands of SDF Kurdish militia. The battle for the town began after US forces helped Kurdish fighters conduct an airborne landing on the southern bank of the Euphrates in late March. That allowed them to gain control of an important nearby airbase in the onslaught to drive Daesh from the town. Despite fierce objections from NATO ally Turkey, the United States this week approved supplying arms to the powerful Kurdish YPG militia, a key component of the SDF and their campaign. Ankara strongly opposes US support of the YPG, viewing it as the Syrian extension of the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, which has waged a 3-decade insurgency within Turkey. But the YPG has emerged as a valuable partner for the US in the fight against Daesh and the capture of Tabqa. This SDF soldier says the Kurdish faction would now move to liberate Raqqa from Daesh. Raqqa lies in a Daesh enclave on the northern bank of the Euphrates after the SDF closed on the city from the north, east and west. Daesh's only means of crossing to its main territory south of the river is by boat after airstrikes knocked the area's bridges out of service. On a diplomatic front, a UN aid official said the world body still has a million questions about a deal struck by Russia, Turkey and Iran with a reported reduction in the fighting in Syria. He said 8 envoys remain almost totally stalled.
They will work very openly, proactively with the United Nations and with humanitarian partners to implement this agreement. We do have a million questions and concerns, but I think we don't have the luxury that some have of this distant cynicism and saying it will fail. We need this to succeed.
UN envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, said a new round of proximity talks with Syrian government negotiators and the opposition will take place in Geneva from May the 16th to the 19th to take advantage of promising developments after the deal agreed in Astana. One of the agreements in the Astana memorandum is an exchange of released detainees from both sides, a point that has been nearly finalized, according to the envoy.
On detainees, abductees and missing people, there are many categories. That paper is now almost completely, I won't say blessed, but finalized. So to tell you when the first detainees will be released is premature. What I can tell you is that that has gone much more faster than I was fearing it would not do.
The three-country deal on the de-escalation zones was signed last week in the Kazakh capital Astana with a goal of resolving operational issues such as how to police the zones within 2 weeks and of mapping them out by June the 4th. Late Shankiti for the news at 10.
Senior tribal, military and political leaders have formed a new council seeking the secession of southern Yemen. Former governor of the area's main city, Aden, Rus al-Zubaydi, made the announcement and threatened to bring more turmoil to the 2-year-old civil war. He said a national political leadership under his presidency would administer and represent the South region, which holds much of Yemen's modest oil deposits, the backbone of its economy. The announcement raises the prospect of more division in an already complex conflict in the Arabian Peninsular country, where Saudi Arabia is leading a coalition of Gulf Arab forces against Houthi militias allied to Iran. But the Southerners and the government of President Abd Rabba Mansour Hadi have been caught up in their own power struggle, undermining Saudi efforts to coordinate the anti-Houthi campaign. Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas met Russian President Vladimir Putin in the southern resort of Sochi. The two leaders praised bilateral relations as they opened a cultural center in Bethlehem via video conference. According to the Wafa news agency information, the construction of the new venue, named Putin Palestinian Foundation for Culture and Economics, cost $40 million. The center is meant to promote cultural exchange between the Palestinians and Russians. U.S. President Donald Trump called James Comey the FBI chief. He fired a showboat and grandstander. He said in an NBC TV interview he would have dismissed him even if officials at the Justice Department had not recommended it. A senior White House official also said former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers is being considered as a candidate to replace Comey as FBI director. The FBI's acting director, meantime, promised to tell the Senate Intelligence Committee of any effort to interfere with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's probe into links between Russia and Trump presidential campaign. Acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe leads the agency after President Donald Trump's abrupt firing of Comey. McCabe told the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is investigating alleged Russian interference in the U.S. elections, he believed the agency has sufficient resources to investigate the matter.
Sir, if you're referring to the Russia investigation, I do. I believe we have the adequate resources to do it, and I know that we have resourced that investigation adequately. If you're referring to the many constantly multiplying counterintelligence threats that we face across the spectrum, they get bigger and more challenging every day, and resources become an issue over time. But in terms of that investigation, sir, I can assure you we are covered.
South Korea's new President Moon Jae-in launched international efforts to defuse tension over North Korea's weapons development. He urged both dialogue and sanctions as he tries to ease Chinese anger about a U.S. anti-missile system. The South Korea leader spoke a day after he was sworn in. He first spoke to Chinese President Xi Jinping and later to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on how to respond to North Korea's rapidly developing nuclear and ballistic missile programs in violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Meantime, North Korea's state media showed two still photographs that it claims to be satellite images of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense THAAD system deployed in South Korea. It said the satellite images were showing the THAAD components, 2 launchers and 1 X radar and other auxiliary equipment installed at a golf course at the southern South Korean country. Somalia's government and its foreign backers said they are hammering out a plan to try and strengthen the Somali army to take over the fight against Al-Shabaab militants from overstretched African Union troops. British Prime Minister Theresa May told a conference in London to discuss Somalia's security issues and humanitarian crisis that the plan aims to unite Somalia's main army with a range of regional forces based across the divided and chaotic territory. The African Union troops have clawed back most of Somalia's main towns and cities from Al-Shabaab since they helped drive the militants out of the capital Mogadishu in 2010. But the soldiers from Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda and other states are due to start leaving next year.
As an international community, our commitment to Somalia matters. Not just because it is right to help Somalia to overcome the threat of terrorism and the devastating effects of years of famine and bloodshed, but also because these challenges that face Somalia affect us all. If Somalia is a foothold for terrorist groups like Al-Shabaab and Daesh, if global trade is hijacked by pirates in the Indian Ocean, or if millions are continually displaced in a desperate bid to escape poverty and drought, the impact of instability in Somalia is felt across the whole region and the wider world. To welcome you.
The United Nations is seeking a further $900 million this year for Somalia, where more than 6 million people need humanitarian assistance and 275,000 malnourished children are at risk of starvation.
This morning we presented a revised humanitarian response plan seeking an additional $900 million through the end of the year. And we also need to address the damage caused by climate change and conflict. And this conference aims to agree on a new partnership as Somalia turns a page. The United Nations will do everything possible to make this the start of a new chapter of sustainable prosperity and lasting peace for Somalia.
Jordanian radio station Sawt al-Ghad broke the Guinness World Record for the second time after receiving the largest number of call-ins within 48 hours. The number of calls the broadcaster had received totaled 4,907, setting a new world record. Last year, they broke another world record by broadcasting non-stop for 61 hours. World number 2 Novak Djokovic reached the quarter-finals of the Madrid Open with a 6-4, 7-5 over Spaniard Feliciano Lopez. Djokovic, who won the tournament last year, taking the first set 6-4 before breaking in the 12th game of the second to avoid a tie-break. Djokovic joins David Goffin in the quarter-finals after the Belgian beat Milos Raonic of Canada 6-4, 6-2, along with Japan's Kai Nishikori, who saw off David Ferrer of Spain 6-4, 6-3. Also in the Madrid Open, number 3 seed Stan Wawrinka crashed out of the Madrid Open after he was defeated by world number 52 Benoit Paire 7-5, 4-6, 6-2. The pair had met a total of 9 times, with the Swiss world number 3 coming out on top on 7 occasions, leaving the 28-year-old Frenchman with 2 previous wins. Wawrinka becomes the first big-name casualty of the men's tournament, with Murray, Djokovic and Nadal all making it through the third round.
7-5, 4-6, 16.
And finally, the weather forecast. It will be a bit chilly tonight across the hilly areas, but warm in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea, with light and variable winds. Tomorrow it will be sunny in Amman with a high of 25 degrees and hot in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. The Gulf of Aqaba can also expect a hot day tomorrow with a high of 35 degrees, northerly moderate winds and somewhat choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here are top stories once again. The Prime Minister inaugurates key projects to improve water supply and create jobs in the northern region. A US spokesman says the United States will soon start arming Kurdish fighters in Syria after the capture of the town of Tabqa from Daesh. And South Korea's new president starts efforts to defuse tension over North Korea's weapons development. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Lil Balkar. Have a lovely weekend.